What if the reason your body feels like it's falling apart with age isn't time at all, but a language you've simply forgotten how to speak? Most of us accept a terrible myth, that aging inevitably turns our muscles to dust and our bones to chalk. But consider this for a moment. Anthropologists have uncovered skeletal remains from people who lived 40, 50, 60 years ago in pre-industrial villages. Their bones often show more density, more resilience, than the average person in their 30s or 40s walking through a shopping mall today. They didn't have Peloton memberships. They had never heard of a personal trainer. The very concept of exercise as a separate scheduled event simply didn't exist in their world. And that gap between how they moved and how we work out might be the very thing that's misinforming your biology. Here's the hidden truth about your body that most health advice completely misses. The decay we blame on a birthday candle isn't just the relentless march of time. A huge portion of it is a direct biological response, a response to signals that you stopped sending. Your skeleton, your muscles, your entire metabolic network are constantly waiting for specific instructions. In the United States, nearly 40% of adults over 60 suffer from significant muscle and bone loss, not because their bodies gave up, but because their bodies received a very clear, repetitive message over decades. We don't need this anymore. And they simply complied. I'm Daniel Lieberman. I'm a professor at Harvard, and I've spent my career trying to understand why our ancient bodies struggle so violently in a modern world. Welcome to Dr. Lieberman's Explained. If you start to see your body differently after this, please consider subscribing. We dig into the evolutionary science that most health conversations conveniently ignore. To understand the crisis of aging today, we have to go back. Not to talk about how our ancestors exercised, they didn't, but to understand a fundamental law of human hardware. For almost all of human history, survival was a tightrope walk between moving to find food and sitting still to save energy. Calories were precious, often scarce. Every unnecessary jump or sprint had a real cost attached to it. Evolution watched that cost very carefully. The result is a human body that is paradoxically built for incredible endurance, yet also wired to be a lazy genius. We are designed to conserve energy whenever we can get away with it. That's not a design flaw. That's a survival strategy. Now consider what your skeleton actually is. It's not a dry, static scaffold holding you up. It's a living, listening tissue. And it asks one question over and over. Am I still being used? Scientists call this Wolff's law. A 19th century surgeon noticed that bone strengthens where force is applied and weakens where it is not. Your skeleton is essentially waiting for the mail. If you send it a package of heavy loads, it bulks up to handle the delivery. If the mailbox stays empty, it stops paying the rent on that extra tissue. Take the Hadza hunter-gatherers in Tanzania. They walk between 5 and 9 miles a day on average. But here's the crucial detail. They are not jogging for cardio. They are walking to get water, to find tubers, to hunt. Their movement is purposeful. Purpose changes everything. Your bones don't care if you're in a gym. They care if you're in a fight for survival. Researchers looking at ancient remains in coastal Peru found bone density that modern sports scientists would expect to see in elite athletes. But these weren't athletes. They were fishermen and farmers. Their bodies were simply the byproduct of a life that never stopped asking them to work. And here's the critical part. That work didn't stop in old age. The signals kept coming. The bones kept responding. The muscles kept adapting. The biology held its ground. But the moment those signals stop, something far more efficient than aging begins. The moment the load disappears, your body begins a quiet, logical dismantling. This isn't failure. It's perfect evolutionary efficiency. Think of the retired executive in Chicago, the remote coder in Austin, the 60-year-old whose world has shrunk to the house, the car, and the grocery store. They aren't aging badly because their biology is broken. They are aging rapidly because their biology is doing exactly what it evolved to do. When the skeleton stops getting the memo about weight and pressure, it doesn't get sad. It just moves resources elsewhere. Bone is expensive to keep. If the system detects no compression on the spine, no tension on the leg bones, it draws a perfectly logical conclusion. This load is gone. This tissue is a luxury. Let's recycle it. In the ancestral world, that conclusion was almost never reached. Because even when resting, our ancestors used the ground. They squatted, they sat on rocks, they shifted constantly. Modern life offers something evolution never prepared us for: mechanical silence, hours in a chair, days of flat floors and cushy shoes, weeks where the hardest physical thing you do is climb one flight of stairs. Consider a woman in her mid-60s who spent decades as a desk-bound manager. After retirement, she felt her body simply decide to fall apart. Her bone scans confirmed it. Significant loss. She hadn't been sick. She hadn't made bad choices. She had simply entered an environment that stopped talking to her biology. And her body responded with ruthless logic. This raises a deeper question. If the body needs these signals, why do most exercise programs fail to stop the slide? At this point, the easy answer seems to be just add exercise. Join the gym. Get on the plan. But evolution tells a different story. Exercise, the idea of a scheduled, sweaty event for health, is a modern invention. It didn't exist for the vast majority of human history. And here's the trap. When we relegate health to a 30-minute block, we give the other 23.5 hours a free pass. We treat them as neutral, but they are not neutral. Every hour you spend sitting isn't just an absence of exercise. It's an active message being delivered to your body. A message that says, relax, withdraw, we've got this. The body doesn't respond to bursts. It responds to frequency. Research comparing office workers in the West to rural communities in East Africa shows something fascinating. The rural groups do sit, often for similar total hours, but they sit differently. They're on the ground. They squat. They kneel. They get up and down constantly. These variations maintain a continuous low-level activation of muscles and bones. The modern chair, that marvel of comfort, removes all of that variation. Think of the 55-year-old who joins a gym with great intentions. For a few weeks, he's motivated. Then the friction sets in, the drive to the gym, the changing of clothes, the arbitrary effort. From a cultural standpoint, we call this a lack of discipline. From an evolutionary standpoint, his brain is just doing its job. It's conserving energy because in his environment, survival isn't at stake. This isn't a character flaw. This is evolutionary economics. Let's pause for a second. If you remember one thing from this, remember this. Your body isn't decaying from age. It's decaying because the conversation went dead. And the solution isn't to shout louder at the gym 3 times a week. It's to start whispering all day long. The mechanics behind this are precise. Inside your bones are cells called osteocytes. They are sensors. Their only job is to feel mechanical stress. When they feel it, they call in the builders, osteoblasts, to reinforce the structure. When they don't feel it, they allow the demolition crew, osteoclasts, to break it down. This system evolved in a world where mechanical silence was almost impossible to find. Under the right conditions, bone can begin to rebuild in as little as 8 to 12 weeks. The system isn't just capable of decline, it's equally capable of restoration. The same is true for muscle. The protein structures in your muscles are in a constant war between building and breaking down. What tips the balance is tension, especially resistance, pushing or pulling against something that pushes back. In the absence of that, the balance tips toward breakdown. And here's a stark illustration of this principle. NASA figured this out before the rest of us did. Astronauts returning from months in microgravity come back looking like they aged decades. In space, without the constant pull of gravity, they lose up to 1% of bone mass per month. 6 months up there can cause damage that takes years to reverse on Earth. Your body doesn't just tolerate gravity. It depends on it like oxygen. What NASA learned is that the human spine needs to be compressed. The hips need impact. The long bones need to bend. These aren't stresses your body simply tolerates. They are the raw data it needs to function. The modern world, soft surfaces, smooth floors, climate control, delivery apps, has created for millions of people something metabolically similar to spaceflight. Not as extreme, but operating on the same principle. The signals are absent. The biology responds. And once you understand that, the failure of aging starts to look like exactly what it is, a logical outcome of a specific environment, an outcome you can change. Once you see movement through this lens, the question shifts. Instead of how do I force myself to exercise, you start asking, how do I redesign my life so movement is automatic? This is what I call designing your environment instead of relying on willpower. Evolution didn't build us to rely on constant motivation. It built us to respond to our surroundings. Ancestral humans didn't will themselves to be fit. They lived in a world where being fit was unavoidable. The secret to aging well isn't discipline, it's structure. Imagine a retired teacher who redesigns her day so that walking is the default way to run errands. She's not exercising, she's getting the mail, buying milk, visiting a neighbor. Her skeleton can't tell the difference between a recreational walk and a purposeful walk, but her brain, the one wired to avoid arbitrary effort, sure can. Imagine the 65-year-old who trades his office chair for a standing desk, who gardens twice a week not for health, but because he loves it, who carries his own groceries, who takes the stairs. None of these are exercise, but all of them are sending a steady stream of mechanical signals to a biology that is starving for them, walking to the store instead of driving, taking the stairs, carrying the bags, standing during phone calls, gardening. These little things individually seem insignificant, but over months and years, they add up to thousands of signals that maintain bone strength, muscle mass, and metabolic stability. The missing ingredient isn't always intensity, it's consistency. Many people fall into an all-or-nothing trap. If they can't commit to an hour of torture at the gym, they do nothing. But evolution didn't design us for torture. It designed us for persistent, moderate effort scattered across the day. Walking is so powerful because it aligns with how we evolved. It imposes gentle load, it uses big muscles, it boosts metabolism. And most importantly, it gives movement a context. For millions of years, walking connected us to food, to family, to territory. It had purpose. And the brain rewards purposeful movement with a different chemistry than it does arbitrary movement. This is why structured exercise so often fails. When exercise is a separate event, the brain treats it as an optional task. It goes on a list. And when that list competes with fatigue, weather, or social obligations, it often loses. Not because you're weak, but because your brain evolved to resist burning energy for no clear survival reason. What changes the equation isn't stronger willpower. It's rearranging your environment so the mechanical demands are baked into your daily life. A walkable neighborhood, a standing surface at work, stairs you actually use, carrying instead of wheeling. These aren't substitutes for exercise. They are a return to the ecological context that exercise was invented to mimic. The evolutionary insight is ancient. Bodies that were used kept working. Bodies that were spared fell apart. Not because the spared body was broken, but because the biology interpreted stillness as a signal to stop maintenance. There's another dimension to this story that changes everything. Skeletal muscle isn't just a mechanical lever. It's a massive metabolic organ. When muscle mass declines, which happens at a rate of 3 to 5% per decade after middle age for sedentary people, it's not just about strength. Your ability to process blood sugar drops. Inflammation rises. Even cognitive function suffers. Over the last 15 years, scientists have discovered molecules called myokines. These are signals released by contracting muscles. They talk to your brain, your liver, your immune system. They lower inflammation. They support brain health. And here's the kicker. They only get released when your muscle is working under load. This is an evolutionary system of breathtaking elegance. In the ancestral world, a working muscle was a reliable signal that the organism was healthy and engaged. The body used that signal to regulate dozens of other systems. When the signal was strong, those systems thrived. When the signal went quiet, support faded. For aging, this is huge. The loss of muscle isn't just a physical problem. It's a regulatory crisis. And the fix isn't motivation. It's mechanical. Your body needs the signal. And the signal comes from loading muscle consistently. This doesn't require a gym. It requires gravity, resistance, and a body asked to do more than it finds comfortable. Squat down, pick up something heavy, push against something that pushes back. These are ancient conversations, and your biology is still fluent in them. What's remarkable and deeply underappreciated is that this ability doesn't disappear with age. Older bodies aren't broken. The machinery works fine. The problem is that the signal has been missing so long the body is deep in a withdrawal state. Studies on resistance training in adults over 70 show massive improvements in muscle, bone density, and balance. Not because they reversed aging, but because they finally restored the conversation. The body wasn't broken, it was just waiting in silence. Now, I want you to really feel what that means. When you restore the conversation, you aren't just adding strength. You are telling your immune system to stay vigilant. You are telling your brain that the body is still active, still capable, still relevant. This is why people who adopt even small, consistent habits, like carrying their own luggage, standing instead of slouching, taking the long way, often report not just physical improvements, but a sense of mental sharpness and emotional resilience they thought was lost to age. The connection is real, and it runs both ways. Let's go back to the question we started with. If physical decline is just what happens when you get old, why did it happen so much more slowly in those populations we talked about? The answer is that decline isn't written into the biology. It's written into the environment, into the years of silence that modern life creates. The word exercise carries a burden. It implies something separate, forced, sustained by willpower. And willpower, as any biologist will tell you, is a fragile thing. Natural selection didn't design us to maintain behaviors through willpower. It designed us to maintain them through environmental inevitability. The world's healthiest aging populations aren't exercising more. They're moving unavoidably. Okinawan farmers working land into their 80s. Sardinian shepherds walking steep terrain daily. These aren't super people. They are ordinary people living in environments that haven't yet silenced their bodies. Their longevity is an environmental story told through biology. There's a deep irony here. We built a civilization of incredible comfort, climate control, smooth floors, delivered food, ergonomic chairs. In doing so, we accidentally eliminated the very inputs our biology needs to survive. What feels like a failure of discipline is actually a mismatch between you and your environment. Name it correctly. Then do something simpler and more durable than forcing yourself into a gym. Give your body something to respond to. It's been waiting longer than you know. And here's one of the most hopeful facts I've learned in my career. The body's responsiveness doesn't have a deadline. I've seen people in their 80s begin to squat again, to carry light loads, to walk further, and within weeks, their blood work improves, their balance stabilizes, their mood lifts. The machinery is still there, waiting for the green light. You just have to turn it on. In the next episode, we're going to explore something even stranger: the direct connection between muscle activity and the brain itself. The link between physical load and neurological vitality is one of the most revolutionary discoveries in modern science, and I think it will change how you see your mind as much as your body. If this way of thinking is new to you, please hit subscribe. The next conversation is going to be the most surprising one yet.